Hormonal contraception comes in many forms: the pill, the patch, Yaz, NuvaRing, and what they all have in common is they all can put women's health at risk. It's a problem that's gaining more awareness. Today you'll hear from experts as well as women with first-hand experience. Stay with us. Dr. Donna Harrison has been a practicing gynecologist for 15 years. During this time, she's researched and witnessed the harmful effects hormonal contraception can have on women. But what's most alarming to her is many women don't know what side effects they could be subjecting their bodies to.
You can put hormones in your body by using a device called a vaginal ring. You can put hormones in your body through an implant in your arm. But the most popular form in the United States is the oral contraceptive pill. The birth control pill is made of estrogen and progesterone. Those are hormones. And hormones affect how your body grows. So in a woman, her hormonal cycle affects many different parts of her body, including her brain, the breast, the ovary, the immune system. The contraception mimics the kind of hormone levels that would be found in early pregnancy. Because it makes your body think that you might be pregnant, then the idea was that that would cause the ovaries to stop releasing eggs.
Amy Sedgwick is the owner of Red Tent Sisters, a fertility awareness company she runs with her sister Kimberly in Toronto, Canada. It promotes natural, healthful approaches to contraception, fertility, and reproductive health. Negative viewpoints on hormonal contraception come from all types of backgrounds. Amy supports abortion and other social issues from a liberal perspective. After experiencing firsthand the side effects of the pill, Amy began to research the health issues associated with hormonal birth control, and what she discovered greatly concerned her.
I would say, some of the key areas in terms of the research are certainly the stroke risk is greatly increased. I believe it's about 8-fold increase for women who are on the pill. Another one is mood disorders, which are huge among pill users, and probably one of the key reasons why women come to me and ask me about natural methods is because they report that the pill is literally making them crazy. So that's a common experience. Another concern is certainly around the long-term fertility issues. So by suppressing a woman's natural reproductive cycle, when a woman comes off the pill, it can take many months, and in some cases I've seen years, for women to return to their body actually knowing how to have a normal cycle and how to ovulate on their own. And so because of that, I am seeing a lot of repercussions from a fertility perspective. And then certainly the connection with cancer, and for me that really hits home because my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer about 6 years ago, basically right when my daughter was born and when I was having these issues. So, the connection with breast cancer risk is another big concern of mine.
There have been several studies, very interesting studies, that show that teenagers who take the birth control pill have an increased risk of breast cancer. And so breast cancer is one of those cancers that does respond to hormone stimulation. The other interesting thing that we know is that women who take estrogen, the same chemical that's in the birth control pill, after menopause have an increased risk in breast cancer. So there is a definite association between taking the hormone estrogen and breast cancer later.
And as the cervical cancer link, is there one of those too?
When a girl or a woman takes the birth control pill, the estrogen causes a certain place in the cervix to grow, and that place is called the transformation zone. Those cells that are in the transformation zone of the cervix are part of the target cells for a particular virus that we know causes cervical cancer, and that virus is human papillomavirus. The birth control pill doesn't cause cancer per se. It's the human papillomavirus that causes cancer. But when the birth control pill causes changes, it makes a woman more susceptible to being infected by the human papillomavirus.
Ryan and Michelle Samuelsen have been married for 2 years. Before the wedding, Michelle began researching forms of hormonal contraception. She and Ryan didn't want something that caused early abortions or dispersed too many hormones into her body, so they decided to use NuvaRing. But within a few months, Michelle began to experience emotional and physical side effects that not only affected her health, but also began to take a toll on their new marriage.
I was looking for something that had the lowest amount of hormones in it, just because I know that there are side effects to it. And so before we got married, I went to my doctor and was trying to find something that didn't have was known to be kind of convenient, because I tend to forget about pills. And she suggested NuvaRing, and I took it, and it was actually pretty good for the first few months. I didn't really notice any side effects. It was really convenient. It was great. But then as we started going on in our marriage, after a few months, about a year, I started noticing I was really fatigued all the time. I got a systemic yeast infection. I was on medications for that. Medications didn't work. I ended up having to go on a special diet. I had to completely alter how I ate to get rid of it. And of course, along with the yeast infection comes a lot of fatigue, a lot of emotional issues, which made it hard for us to communicate. I think it made it hard for him as well, trying to figure me out, because I wasn't, and I kept telling him, like, this isn't who I am, I promise this isn't who I am. And I had a lot of fogginess in my thinking, a decrease in desire, I think, just even in our own marriage and in our intimacy and interaction. There was a decrease in desire for me, which concerned me as well as the new bride, which I think is really important for women to know that. And I've had several other friends say the exact same thing, that as soon as they got off, that they had their intimacy and their lives with their husbands was a lot better. So I think at a point we just came to a point where it's not worth it to be fighting this all the time. The point of birth control is to make your life convenient, right? That's why you do it. And it wasn't. It was changing who I was.
Seth and Rachel Heiser were high school sweethearts who've been married for 9 years. They didn't want to have children right away, so they chose to use hormonal contraception. Rachel's doctor recommended the birth control pill, but didn't inform them of any of the potential side effects. Rachel quickly began experiencing symptoms that were unusual, and her doctor didn't seem to have any solutions.
A couple months before we got married, I went to the doctor and they just put me on the pill. I didn't really know anything else about birth control at the time, other than if you don't want to get pregnant, go on the pill. So that's what I did. And I actually started gaining weight pretty quickly, and I ended up gaining 30 pounds in a year, which was pretty distressing, as a woman, a newly married woman especially, and I just started having a lot of odd side effects.
What side effects?
I went from having a normal cycle of 2 to 3 days to a whole week. Went from having, maybe 1 day of being really grouchy and having pain to 5 to 7 days of being really grouchy and in a lot of pain, which is not great for a new marriage, and wild mood swings. Like, I felt almost bipolar sometimes. It was really odd. Because normally I'm a pretty even-keeled person for a woman,
For a woman, she added that.
I did. I'm well aware. But I'm pretty even-keeled most of the time, and so to feel really high and really low was very odd for me.
I'd known her for more than 10 years before we had gotten married, and it just seemed kind of odd that as soon as she gets on the pill, she starts having much larger mood swings. So the only things that had changed was we'd gotten married and she was on the pill. Mm-hmm. And it was just a lot more intense.
Did you identify your problems too, taking the birth control pill?
I firmly believe they were directly related, because
there had no other lifestyle change.
I hadn't changed anything else other than being married. And then once I went off the pill, all of the symptoms stopped within a relatively short period of time, within a few months, except for the ovarian cysts I had developed towards the end of that year. That took about a year and a half to finally go away, and I haven't had it since. So it seemed to really be completely tied to the birth control.
Physical ramifications that can be caused by hormonal contraception have been well documented, and there's a growing awareness among women. But something few people seem to know is the effect hormonal birth control can have on the environment, and even more alarming, unborn babies. Amy, do you think most doctors are aware of the health risks associated with hormonal contraception?
I think
they're aware of them. They don't seem to be terribly concerned. For the most part, I would say, all of my clients report that when they went on it, they were really not properly informed of the risks associated. The conversation that needs to be happening between a doctor and their patient doesn't seem to be happening.
I understand there are some environmental concerns. Tell me what those are.
Because the pill gives women much higher levels of the hormones than would naturally occur in their body, they do end up getting excreted into our water systems through urine and bowel movements. And because of that, these hormones are ending up in our water systems. So what they're discovering through research is that there's actually a feminizing effect happening in our water system. It's actually affecting the ability of organisms in the water systems to actually reproduce.
So you're talking about animals and organisms in nature. Are there any other impacts that these forms of contraception have on women and possibly their unborn babies?
I know many women in my practice who have been on the pill, and I would say to them, do you understand how the pill works? And they'd say, well, it just prevents an egg from being released. And I said, well, that is one way that the pill works, and that was the way it was supposed to work. But the pill has other effects. Depending on the amount of estrogen that you have in the pill, some women can release an egg maybe 1 out of 4 cycles or 1 out of 5 cycles. There are changes in the lining of the uterus that happen that we can document for women that have not released an egg. And those changes involve thinning the lining of the uterus and also changing the way the lining of the uterus responds if an egg were to be fertilized. So the big unanswered question right now is what happens to those eggs that are fertilized, those embryos that have been conceived on the pill. If you look at some of the FDA information on the birth control pill, they will claim that embryos can't implant as well in a woman who is on the birth control pill. So for someone who cares about life beginning at fertilization, this is a problem.
Did knowing that breakthrough ovulation is possible, did that affect your decision at all?
Yes. I'm actually pretty upset I didn't know that before taking the pill.
Do you think your doctor should have told you?
Absolutely. Absolutely she should have. I don't like it when doctors know about side effects and know about how something works and then don't tell you. That really bothers me, especially with something that important.
In today's society, hormonal contraception has become the most popular and accepted form of birth control because it seems easy, convenient, and effective. But as we've seen, that's not the whole story. A more natural approach to family planning is becoming more popular. Further, our guests have found it to be effective and much safer for their physical and emotional health.
There's some organizations out there that teach fertility awareness methods and natural family planning, so that's what I teach in my business. The most recent research in 2007 looked at 900 women using this method in Europe and found it to be over 99% effective. So the fact that there is a highly effective form of natural birth control is really total news to women. They look at a woman's daily signs of fertility, so she's looking at her cervical mucus, which is an indicator that she's approaching ovulation, and it looks at basal body temperature. So a woman's temperature actually increases right after she ovulates and stays up until menstruation, so that can help her to confirm that she has ovulated. And then if she wants, she can also check her cervical position and texture, which also changes over the course of the menstrual cycle in response to hormones.
And you say that these things are that effective?
They are, yeah.
I think that would come as a surprise to most women.
Yes, well, it certainly came as a surprise to me, and it comes to a surprise to all of my clients when I share that, but it's true.
Is the natural family planning process complicated?
No, it's great. It's less complicated than the pill, which, hey, I'm all about easy, you know. I just track everything on a little free app on my iPod.
Really?
I tell it when my cycle starts, I tell it when it ends, it tells me when I'm fertile and when I'm not fertile, and there you go.
That's pretty high tech.
I love it. That's not bad for free either. So it's great. Wow. It's really easy, really, really easy.
How did that work out for you?
very well for several years.
5 years.
Yeah, I mean, we were married for 5 years before we had our son.
All my friends recommended natural family planning, and honestly, for me, who can hardly remember to take my vitamins, I didn't think that was going to work for me. So it was actually at a Bible study with my friends, and my one girlfriend showed me, she had a planner, and she just showed like how she charted out her cycle, which was really easy. And then they just used condoms between day 10 and day 20 just to be extra safe, and that's all they did. They didn't do temperature, nothing like that. And I mean, you run a risk in anything you do. But hopefully if you're married, you're somewhat aware that that's a possibility. That's what we have done, and we've been very happy with it.
There's an excitement that's back, and there's a giddiness and definitely a high emotional state that's back that wasn't there when we were first married. And then for me as a man, just being able to take on some of the responsibility for birth control was something that that made me feel good. And then to see the fruits of that in our intimacy together was just rewarding. It's just like, wow, this should have happened a lot sooner.
So you grew closer as a couple as a result.
Oh, definitely.